Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Nest radio station. I am your host, Sarah Mean. Today we have a very special hometown hero joining us, a former senator from our community with a wealth of experience and insights to share. Please welcome to the show former senator and current chief operating officer for Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, Mr. David Knezek. Mr. Knezek, welcome to the show.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Oh, we're all clapping. Okay.
Mr. Knezek, you've had a long and distinguished career in public service. Could you share with our listeners a bit about your background, your years servicing our home of Dearborn and Dearborn Heights, your upbringings, and anything you would like our viewers to know more about you on a personal level to start us off?
Yeah, and if there's anything that I don't cover along the way, I tell folks I'm an open book on this stuff. So if you've got questions or things I didn't jump into as deep as you wanted, just let me know. We can discuss them. But my name is David Knezek, born and raised in Dearborn Heights. I went to Catholic school for preschool through 8th grade at St. Linus, so just right down the road here. And wanted so badly to go to Divine Child as a high school student, but my parents went to Crestwood and graduated in 78 and 79. They said, Crestwood's good enough for us. Crestwood's good enough for you. So went to Crestwood for high school, graduated in 2004. It's our 20-year reunion this year. Absolutely flies by. The thought that it's a 20-year reunion is crazy to me. But after that, I did my freshman year of college at Michigan State. I tell folks I had a little too much fun at Michigan State. So I came, who doesn't? Yeah. I came back to U of M Dearborn my sophomore year of college. And so this is 2005, 2006-ish. Times were so different back then. And we can talk about this too, as you want. But, the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan were front of mind for so many people. And, I came from a military family and my father was a police officer here in town. And I said, I want to serve too. I want to be able to look back on my life when I'm 40, 50, 60 years old without having to question, would I, could I, should I have done X, Y, and Z? And so I joined the military. I was in the Marine Corps for 6 years. I deployed to Iraq twice as a part of the war. And then when I came back, I got back into school. I had a significantly different appreciation for all the things that we have here in the States after coming back from that experience. And that was really where I think the journey started to get me to where I'm at today. When I was a senior in college, I ran for the Michigan House of Representatives, so was very fortunate enough and blessed to win. And so got elected in November of 2012, graduated in December of 2012, and then took office as a state representative in January of 2013. I did that for 2 years. I was then elected to the Senate in 2014. In 2018, I lost re-election to the Senate. Losing re-election is still the greatest thing that's ever happened to me from a professional standpoint. So I'd love to talk about that with y'all too, if you want. And then after I left the Senate, I went to work for the Attorney General for 2 years. So our current Attorney General, Dana Nessel, I was her Director of Legislative Affairs for 2 years. And then in 2021, I got the call from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services to come over, not to serve in the capacity that I am now, but as what we called a senior chief deputy director, which doesn't really make sense, I think, to a lot of folks outside of state government. But a couple months ago, we created this new position, chief operating officer, with a bit more of a executive role and oversight over the whole department. So that there is 37 years condensed into a few minutes.
Wait, I'm kind of curious now. Why was it the best thing when you lost?
It was the best thing when I lost because my career was on my political career was on a very fast trajectory. I was very, very young when I got elected. So I was 25 years old when I got elected to the House of Representatives. The average age in the House is, I think, 51. So like more than half. I was on the young side. And so if you go back to like the Detroit Free Press in 2018-ish, they talk about potential candidates for governor. And our current governor, Governor Whitmer, is one of them. I'm one of them, and then a couple other folks. And so I was on this trajectory. People had big plans for me. I think in some cases, bigger plans than what I had for myself. But losing, I think, forces you to really take stock of what is real versus what is just complete fake. And there's a lot of fake in politics, as you can understand. And it really humbles you. It humbles you in a way that probably is good for you. And so it forces you to take that step back, reassess your life. Is what I'm doing really what I want to be doing? Is it what I'm called to be doing? So I used to say to people all the time, and I even say it now as a Wayne County Commissioner. I left that part out. I got appointed to the Wayne. I got appointed to the Wayne County Commission in 2020. I've been doing that for the last few years as well, representing Dearborn Heights, Garden City, and Inkster. But I used to say all the time to folks, being elected official, it's what I do. It's not who I am. It's what I do. It's not who I am. It doesn't define me. That's really easy to say when you're in the role and doing the job. When you have it taken away from you, literally overnight and very unexpectedly, when you have it taken away from you, you then get to really answer that question. Do I really believe what I've been saying to everybody for so many years? This is just what I do. It's not who I am. And so I think that way, it forced me to kind of rethink where I was at in my life. I went back to college. I got my master's degree, my MBA from the University of Michigan, and was able to find and sort of stay in this realm of politics where I help people the General's Office or the Department of Health and Human Services. So continuing in that role of public service, but without a title or without your name on the door. And what I found, I think maybe to directly answer your question, is that I can be even more impactful on the process from where I'm at now than where I was before. Because every conversation, every meeting we go into before, it was always Senator Knezek, Democrat. Senator Knezek, Democrat from Dearborn Heights. And so everything's immediately politicized from the beginning. Whereas now it's just David. I get to go in, I'm just David. I'm David from the department. And if we've got good ideas, good programs, good initiatives, we're able to talk about those, focus on those without the politics getting in the way.
I like that.
Yeah. Well, that's really amazing, David.
Thank you. You leaned into that. I like that.
And sticking with the topic of community, and given your current role as the CEO of the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, can you tell us what you think is the most important factor a community needs to thrive?
This is great because we're talking to young people. I think if you were to ask me what's the most important thing a community needs to thrive, good schools is probably near the top of that list. And recognizing that, it's not just the investment we're making in the here and now, it's the investment that we're making in the future for our community. And it's I think, one of the reasons why I feel so passionately about getting out and connecting with young people, because people took a chance on me when I was young. Like I said, 25 years old to go to the House of Representatives. People took a chance on that. I wasn't the most experienced. I wasn't the most polished. I didn't have all the knowledge. I still don't. But because people were willing to take that chance, I think it's helped open doors for me. And so I want to make sure that I go back and help open doors for other people as well. And so strong schools, no question, the cornerstone of it. I think a really strong and thriving small business community is important. It's kind of easy when you've got the big dogs that are in your backyard, right? That one employer that employs absolutely everybody. I think the numbers that I've seen recently, almost 90% of jobs in this country are with actual small businesses. And so if you have a thriving small business community, I think it's a good recipe for success. And I think we see that here in Dearborn Heights, which is a bit more of a bedroom community than you might have with next door in Dearborn, who obviously has that big anchor of Ford Motor Company there. But between the schools and the small businesses, I think that's a good recipe for success.
Since we're on the topic of schools,
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to ask, did Crestwood in any way affect where you're at now?
100%. Who wants to talk trash about Crestwood first? I know some of y'all want
Don't
to
talk trash here. No.
No trash talk here? Okay.
Do whatever you want.
Crestwood was so nice for me in so many ways. When I went to St. Linus, they look at me like, no, like I'm 5'9", I'm not the biggest dude, I'm not the smartest dude. I got bullied so bad, so bad when I was in middle school, so bad, and I couldn't see, I think, past or beyond that space or those people, and so I wanted so bad to go to Divine Child. I look back on it now and I say, why would I have ever wanted to do that? Because I would have been around the same people that had treated me so poorly, going back to middle school, and it wasn't until I think maybe 2 months in at Crestwood, I realized nobody here knows anything about the past. Nobody here knows how I was treated, knows how other people thought of me or what have you. It really is a good, genuine chance to level set and reinvent yourself in a way, or just really be your authentic self and let a new group of people decide what they think and what they feel about that. St. Linus was, I think my graduating class was 15 kids tops. Whereas at Crestwood, you've got hundreds. And so, it's very, very different. But so I think that was really great. really let me sort of come out of my shell in a little bit, exposed me to, I think, a lot of the diversity in our community that is thriving and almost second nature to us now, but wasn't, even 20 years ago. I mean, you look at Dearborn Heights now versus what it was 20 years ago versus 40 years ago. These are very different communities in many ways. You go back far enough, Dearborn Heights was this old white Polish community. And so it wasn't until I got to Crestwood that I ever had exposure to the Arab community in our neighborhood, certainly the Muslim community in our neighborhood. I try to get folks to understand that those are two different things. A lot of white folks.
We try to.
Yeah. And so I think that was really great, and it just keeps manifesting itself in so many different ways throughout my life since then. And in terms of political advocacy, your question of sort of the politics and the interest there, the very first time that I ever really got active and engaged, I think in a public-facing way, was over an issue that we had at Crestwood. So I've always loved politics, right? If you go back to 8th grade at St. Linus, I was student council president at St. Linus. I was student government president at Crestwood. I was student government president at U of M Dearborn. And so it's always been a trend and a theme. But when I was at Crestwood, they had one day, I don't know what prompted it, but they started hanging all of the flags of the world in the cafeteria. And we as students thought it was really cool. It gave us something to talk about. And sometimes kids would sit under the flag that they identified with. And, oh, you're Lebanese. I didn't know that. Okay, tell me a little bit about your country. Oh, you're Egyptian. Tell me a little bit about that. Congo. Tell me about that. And so it really got the kids talking with one another. We really liked it. We really enjoyed it. But one day, a school board member was walking through the cafeteria, and he saw this. He saw us sitting down under these flags or identifying with the flags that were hanging. He went to the principal, and the flags were ripped down the next day. He thought it was a divisive thing. He thought the fact that folks were identifying with these flags was something that was ripping the community apart, because he didn't understand or actually have a presence in the school to know that this was a positive. So I remember writing, my little speech, and I'm going to go in there. I'm kicking down the door. I'm going to bring the page. And it's so funny because, now I think I haven't fully accepted yet. Like, I'm on the downward slope to 40. And like, when we're in these conversations, we are the old people in the room now that we used to fight against when we were that age. But, I don't know if you ever heard of Hamid Swiden. He's an attorney in the area. Hamid and I are sitting there in high school, writing our notes. We're ready to go attack. I'm asking Mike Elderani to read the notes. Mike Elderani is a doctor. He's got the place. Yeah, right. So it's all these folks that we're young and we're full of energy and we want to fight the man. And so we're going to go to the school board meeting and we're going to tell them what's up and why they're wrong and why they need to undo what they did. And that's exactly what we did. The school board meeting was at Hillcrest, I think it was. Nope, it was at Highview. We were at Highview. We went in there and we gave these guys the business and we embarrassed them. I mean, really, we embarrassed them to the point where I think it was the next week the flags were brought back up in the school. And so I think for me at a young age, that showed me that when you use your voice for the right things, when you're not afraid to stand up to adults who just don't understand or don't care, you can bring about change in the community. It's a very small way, right? Putting up a flag back in the cafeteria, but it was a tangible thing that for me made it feel accessible and made it feel like it was something that I was passionate about and could be good at and would want to keep doing it. Good question.
Very empowering for us.
Yeah.
So, in your current role as the COO of the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services,
That's
right?
good, yeah.
What are your duties to the community? And how do you ensure it's done with like integrity?
Yeah. So, it's interesting for me because I wear these two hats, right? I have this one that's my full-time job where, I'm back and forth between Lansing and in this role with the department. The department is an absolute beast. So one of my favorite trivia questions to ask folks is, what is larger? The Michigan Department of Health and Human Services budget or McDonald's annual worldwide revenues?
McDonald's.
Bigger. McDonald's. MDHHS, the Department of Health and Human Services, we are $10 billion larger than McDonald's.
Wow.
We do our budget is $35 billion. McDonald's revenues, I might be off by a year or two, but roughly 20 to 25 billion dollars. So we're this absolute beast, right? And there's so many things and so many programs that we interact with folks. So the big one, the process of getting people Medicaid and keeping them on Medicaid, all of this was upended during the pandemic. So we're going through the process now doing what's called redeterminations, reconfirming that people actually qualify for the health care that they're getting right now, and doing our best to keep them on health care. So as it is today, just in since last May, so we're coming up on a year now, 1.2 million people here in the state of Michigan that we've been able to keep on Medicaid. The folks that have been able to move off are either moving into a different low-cost plan that we can get to them through the Department of Insurance and Financial Services, or, in an even better scenario, sometimes they've been able to get a job and get health care so they don't have to come and ask us for it. So that's an even better situation for them too. So health insurance is one of the big ones. Another one that I'm really passionate about is our food assistance program. So you might have heard SNAP benefits before, EBT benefits. Sometimes back in the day, folks will call them food stamps. We've obviously moved beyond that now, but we administer all the food benefits for the state of Michigan and are really passionate about that. Any sort of emergency relief. So if you've fallen on hard times, you need some assistance, your water heater's broken, your furnace went out and it's in the middle of December, you need to have your windows, your doors weatherized so that you're not leaking energy and you're paying exorbitant heating bills. That's all the work that we do at the department. To your question about how do we go about it with integrity or with fidelity or what have you? I think I saw fidelity in the notes. That's why I knew you guys were sharp. You're asking about fidelity. We really try to bring what we call an equity lens to all we do, and that's a new thing for the department. I'll tell you why I think I'm so passionate about this, and I think for me, when it really clicked, there's a author named Gloria Anzaldúa. And Gloria wrote a book called La Frontera, and La Frontera means the borderlands. And what she talks about in this book is, think of something in the center, think of what is considered normal in society, what is accepted, what is, standard practice, right? And so when you ask that question to people, you get, being married, having kids, working your job. These are the quote unquote things that society has said are normal. She said, okay, now think about all the things that are on the outside, the things that society doesn't really accept, the things that society looks down upon or excludes. And then think about the barriers that create or push forward what we consider to be normal or abnormal in this country. And the answer to that in many ways is government and governmental institutions, the military, universities, the whole 9 yards. And so for me, I'm sitting there reading, I said, man, everything I've ever done in my life is playing this really intimate and hands-on role in deciding what people have access to or what they don't, what is considered normal or what's not, what is accepted in this country, what's not. And I think for me, recognizing that you're a part of these institutions that in many ways have held people back and pushed people back and hurt people in a really serious way in the past, recognizing that you have to then lean in and make a lifelong commitment to trying to be a part of the solution or undoing it. And for me, I like to do it from the inside, right? So the Department of Health and Human Services has never really stopped until the last few years to look at things through this equity lens or through what we might call social determinants of health. The social things about who you are, where you live, how you grew up, the air you breathe, the food you drink, the food you eat, the water you drink, all these things that have an impact on who you are in the future. And we're trying to bring that equity lens to everything that we do, because as I tell folks, outcome and intent are two very different things. I may have a really good intent. I may want to do something really good, but if once I implement it, the outcome is bad, I haven't done anything good at all, right? So bringing that equity lens, thinking about things through the lens of social determinants of health, I think that's how we've been able to bring about equity and fidelity and integrity, to your point, to the system. In my role on the Wayne County Commission, it's totally different because at DHHS, I'm one of 15,000 employees, 15,000 people at the department. Here at the Wayne County Commission, it's me and my legislative assistant, Celine Nasser. So it's just a two-man show with 3 communities that we're trying to represent. So for me, it's all about intentionality and, making sure that every community that I serve and that I represent is being treated the same. And I think that manifests itself in a number of different ways. I've got a very diverse community. Dearborn Heights, very diverse. Garden City, predominantly white. Inkster, predominantly black. It requires us being very intentional about how we're moving, where we're going, the outreach that we're doing, to make sure that we don't leave any voices at the behind. And especially for me as a middle-aged white dude, to make sure that I'm being intentional about uplifting the voices of Arab Americans, Black Americans, and others in this, so that it just doesn't become the crusty middle-aged white dude show. You know what I'm saying? So that's what we try, and it can be in little ways. Our Teacher of the Month program, our Business of the Month program, everything gets rotated around. Everything's very intentional about who we're uplifting and who we're showing, and who we are establishing as the best and brightest in our community. So our Teacher of the Month, Business of the Month program, the whole 9 yards, and then in terms of advocacy and resources that I'm bringing back to the district, I always think about Inkster, who gets overlooked, consistently overlooked. Black and brown communities consistently overlooked in this country, and certainly at the political level. I think about South Dearborn Heights, and some folks in Dearborn Heights will correct me. They'll say, there's not a North and there's not a South. There's one Dearborn Heights. Conceptually, I get that. But the reality is the north end of Dearborn Heights, this area north of Cherry Hill, gets way more attention and resources and support than our folks do along the Van Born corridor. And so making sure that we're being intentional about how resources are distributed is important to me as well. So that's what I try to bring to the job. And then you also have to bring to it, this is like a very long answer, so I apologize. You have to just accept and know on the front end that you don't have all the answers. And that if you really want to be successful, if you really want to have an impact, you have to surround yourself with people that are going to push you, challenge you, tell you when you're wrong, and know that if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. You want to be in places. I always want to be in places where I feel like I'm there to learn from or grow from or become a better person because of who I've surrounded myself with. And that's what we try to do in terms of the political role as well.
Great, David, I have another question for you. With everything that you just described, all the roles that you play, all the goals that you're trying to achieve, can you describe to us what challenges or struggles the department and the Wayne County Commissioner faced with COVID, as COVID was like the lockdown was initiated yesterday, almost 4 years ago. Well, right. 4 years ago for sure. So yeah, what challenges and struggles did the department face with all those?
Yeah, I think so many of those challenges, those struggles were across the board because, they're both layers of government, right? So your state, your county, your local, your federal. The biggest one, I think, is probably the obvious one. We had not gone through that in like 100 years or so. And so nobody had a playbook for how you're supposed to be able to do something like contact tracing, to have an effective and efficient way of contact tracking where somebody was, where they might have contacted COVID, who they might have spread it to, the whole 9 yards. So you have a technology sort of gap that's there and that's present. You certainly have a resource gap that's present as well. We saw the stories about the numbers of ventilators that people were short on or that they needed, the number of masks that you had to move and get out into the community at such a quick pace. And just, again, trying to make sense of something that was moving faster than we could, and trying to keep up with it in a way that was meaningful, and recognizing that if you're going to make mistakes along the way, you have to be able to fail quickly. I tell people all the time, we're going to fail. That's totally fine. Fail fast, learn from it, move on to the next thing. And certainly there was a lot of lessons that we had to learn along the way too, in terms of how we were responding to it, how we were standing up these vaccination clinics so quickly once we had the vaccine and out and available. Again, it keeps coming back to, we as one entity can't do it on our own. We need to turn to organizations like Access, organizations like our local fire departments, organizations in Inkster at the libraries and what have you, and say, we can give you some resources. We need you, a trusted partner in the community, to be able to make yourself available to others so that they can come in and get the support and the resources they need. But I mean, that was the crux of it, right? It was moving so fast. We had not gone through it recently. I mean, anybody that's alive today hadn't gone through it ever really. And trying to keep up with that pace and get to a point where we were ahead of it and had it under control and get to a steady state like we have today.
It's wonderful to hear, David. Thank you for sharing your duties and pushing our community forward. So what exactly motivated you to pursue a career in public service? Yeah,
I like this one. I decided, so it's interesting because I think for a lot of people in politics, like if you went to Lansing today, I already told you about, sort of like the age gaps between what it was when I got there versus, what it is now. And I think if you look at it, it's changing in many ways. We have a lot of younger people that are getting active and involved. So I was in, and then you had your Abdullah Hamouds, you had Darren Camilleri, Jewel Jones went in, Mari Manugian, Kyra Harris Bolden. Kyra is my age. and was just appointed to the Michigan Supreme Court. So, the doors are opening, and I think more young people are seeing this as an opportunity for them, as opposed to something they need to wait and build towards later in their career. For some folks now, this is the first job out of college. Look at Elabas Farhat right now in Dearborn. He's 23 years old. He's not that much older than you guys. And he's a very well-respected, very knowledgeable, very educated person on the political process. And so for me, it wasn't this slow, steady drip, I'm on the tail end of my career. I think I want to run for state rep. No, it's something I want to do early. And it was a very, I think discrete moment for me, where I was at U of M Dearborn. I'm the president of the student government. One of our professors says, David, we're doing this 2-day session at the university on restorative justice. Have you guys ever heard of restorative justice before? So he says, we're doing restorative justice, please come out, participate in this 2-day thing. And I kind of hit him with yeah. I wasn't really interested in it. I just, okay. And I think a week before it, he says, David, it's next week. You're coming, right? I said, okay, I'll come. I tossed it on my calendar, and I showed up. And when I went to this for the first time, I sat there and I listened folks talk about what we spend on prisons in Michigan and what we spend per prisoner in Michigan. And I listened folks talk to what we spend per student in Michigan. Now, this was many, many years ago, right? So it's changed now in a good way. But back then, we were spending roughly $7,000 per student in the state of Michigan. We were spending, on the low end, $35,000 per prisoner. The most expensive prisoners in Michigan back then, they were spending $150,000 per prisoner every single year. It's because these folks, were they folks who had committed a wrong and should have been incarcerated? Yes. But these are also folks that suffer from very serious mental illnesses as well. They needed to belong in an appropriate facility or institution for that, not just sitting in a jail cell. And I was so pissed by this. I mean, really, I sat there, I heard, man, you're spending $7,000 per kid. We're spending $35,000 per prisoner. I said, that feels so backwards to me. We should be spending $35,000 per kid, $7,000 per prisoner. I was a little bit more hard-hearted, I think, towards our justice-involved population back then than I am now. But again, you learn and you grow. And so I went up to a state representative at that meeting, and I said, hey, this is total BS. Like, you're a state representative. You should do something about it. You should do more funding for our kids that are in school. And she hit me with, I can see you're so passionate about it. You should do something about it. Why don't you run for office? And I look back on it now and realize that was really just kind of like a blow-off answer. Oh, yeah, you run for office, little boy. But because me, like, I'm just a total type A, and listen, every person that runs for elected office, they've got a little bit of an ego, right? They've got a little bit of an arrogance to them. There's no doubt. And she said, "Why don't you run for office? You're so passionate about it." I said, "I will." And so the next day, we went into Ryan Correctional Facility. It's since been closed, and we were talking literally from me to Noor with people who were in prison for murder, and you're asking them the question, like, why did this happen? What were the circumstances that led up to this happening? Where did you feel you went astray or things went wrong? And consistently, over and over and over again, in this case, it was predominantly men that we were talking to. They said education. I didn't have the education. I didn't have the support at school. Didn't have the support at home. And that's what caused me to go down this path. And I remember seeing, this was, I'll never forget the image. We were leaving Ryan Correctional Facility, and they had a prison art project that was going on. And there was a gentleman who had drawn a picture on a trifold board. Remember those trifold boards you do projects on? And in the middle of it, it was an hourglass. And at the top of the hourglass, it was a school. The bottom of the school was crumbling into pieces. And those crumbled pieces were turning into dollar bills. And they were flowing through the hourglass down to the bottom, and they were reforming as a prison. And just something about that image was so powerful to me. This crumbling school, the money from the school being invested into that prison. I said, man, we really have to do something about this. And so I went back to U of M Dearborn the next day. I talked to a young group of friends. I said, guys, we need to run for office. Like, it would be my name on it, but it had to be this team effort. We have to do this. We need to have a seat at the table. Because if we don't have a seat at the table, these old folks are talking for us, and they have no idea what our experience is or what we're passionate about. And so that really was it. We decided then and there, I'm going to run. I was a little bit older because of my military time, right? But I'm going to run. It's going to be a totally student-led thing, and we're going to use this as a chance to kind of, stake our claim to the political process. So it was all students from U of M Dearborn. It was all students from Crestwood. I had some students from Dearborn High because at that point I was going into teaching at the time. And so I had been teaching or student teaching 7th and 8th graders at Bryant Middle School in Dearborn, who were then in high school. And so they said, well, you gave to us, maybe it's our chance to give back to you now, the whole 9 yards. And so that's where it started. That's where it ended. It was that interaction in that facility that made me want to get active, want to get engaged. And then the young people that we surrounded ourselves that allowed us to get there.
Wow, David, I think speaking on everyone's behalf, that was extremely motivational. Wow. Especially for us, the youth. You said you were older, but not in our eyes.
Thank you.
Now we're going to transition into a short game. So this game is called...
Oh, no.
No, it's fun. Don't worry. Okay, this game is called Rapid Fire. It's called Rapid Fire.
Okay.
And so how it works is we're going to have 30 seconds to get through a series of questions. And so as soon as you answer one question, I'm already off asking you the next, okay? So you have to be really quick with it.
Okay.
And so the purpose of these questions are to get you to know you more on a personal level, even though you just told us your entire life story. Okay, so are you ready?
Yeah.
All right. Finish the sentence for me. In the morning, I drink coffee or tea?
Water.
Oh, okay. Favorite Middle Eastern dish you always eat? Faster, come on.
Makhlouta.
Wow. You don't eat that. Do you camping or boating?
Say what?
Camping or boating?
Camping.
Okay. Favorite Detroit team? The Red Wings, Tigers,
Red
Lions?
Wings.
Okay.
You need to finish.
Greatest basketball player of all time? Jordan, Kobe, or LeBron?
Kobe.
Dearborn Heights is the greatest city to have
Friends and family.
And what is the greatest movie of all time, in your opinion?
I like Shawshank Redemption.
I've never seen that movie.
It's a good one. Shawshank Redemption. Why did I say Makhlouta?
I don't know.
That's not my favorite.
What is your favorite?
Not at all. Man, I don't know. I could just a little shawarma. I'll be
It's a very
I'll be
basic
happy.
answer, but you
It's
know
very
what?
basic.
Shawarma is everyone's
It is
favorite.
good. How many pickles on the shawarma?
A whole ton.
A lot. All right.
And the
You guys
garlic
are real.
sauce.
You guys are real. I like it.
David, you did great. Thank you for sharing your knowledge with us and for playing Rapid Fire with us. At this time, we're going to take a short commercial break. For now, we're leaving you with one of today's hottest hits here at the Nest, Saturn by SZA.
I know I've got a dent in my hair now. 100%.
HES Academies have been serving the Detroit metro area for over 23 years, promoting academic excellence, leadership, and cultural diversity, ranking as some of the top schools in the state of Michigan. Our pre-K through 12th grade students enjoy tuition-free, state-accredited education by STEM certified and highly qualified staff with no geographical restrictions, and with advanced placement, college dual enrollment, scholarship, and Arabic language programs. Nor International Academy in Sterling Heights at niapsa.org, Star International Academy in Dearborn Heights and in Canton at starpsa.org, Universal Academy in Detroit at universalpsa.org, and Universal Learning Academy in Westland at ulapsa.org. Join HES Academies today and enjoy a free Chromebook for every enrolled student.
Welcome back to the Nest radio station. I'm your host, Sarah Mean. Today we have a very special guest with us. Please help me in welcoming the former Senator and current Chief Operating Officer for Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, Mr. David Knezek. Let's dive right back into it.
David, I want to thank you for coming on the show again. I know that you're probably really busy. Now, I know that you graduated from Crestwood High School, and Bazzi graduated from Dearborn High, which, from what I've heard, was a small rivalry. By the way, he always talks about how Pete beat you pretty bad during basketball. So maybe you should know that. But we are a charter school in the city of Dearborn Heights, and who have gained a tremendous amount of support from our community throughout the years. We've hosted several public officials like Fadl Mahmoud and Dr. Piles over here at the Nest radio station and the CTE Center, and are amazed at the work we have done and are doing. So what are your thoughts about charter schools, and how can you help us spread the word about what we are doing?
I'd love to help spread the word about what you guys are doing. And, for me, we always had fights when we were in Lansing, right? Public school, charter school. Now they'll tell you, and this is true, the law is public charter school. So some folks try to make them different. Some folks try to make them one and the same. For me, what I've always tried to remember and try to keep at the forefront of sort of my discussions and my thoughts and my approach is that's over there. At the end of the day, this is about kids. And what are we doing to give back to kids and pour into the community? And good ideas don't come from any one place, right? I don't know anybody else in the area that's doing a type of podcast like this, but they're doing it at your school. And so for me, I want to come out. I want to be a part of that. I want to help uplift and support and get the word out, promote it on my social media, because I want other folks to see this and say that they want to be a part of it too. So for me, it's a good chance to come here, meet you all, interact with the Nest, and then to go off and be a good ambassador for you all, to encourage others to come and do the same. So, I think that's, for me, very, very exciting. And I heard when we were there at the break about, there's a little competition maybe brewing between us and Canton, I think it was, PCCS. And so, you're darn right. I want the Dearborn Heights folks to bring home the gold, right? So anything that I can do to be helpful and supportive there, I'm happy to do it, because again, sometimes we get caught in these political debates and we forget what it's really about. And it's the kids and the success and what we're doing to set them up for success in the future. I look forward to the day where I can take a step aside and let somebody else come in behind me and pick up that baton and keep running it. I don't want to be one of these guys who's like half dead walking into a legislative chamber, can't think, can't function, the whole 9 yards. Again, I want to be able to make sure that we can pass that baton off to a young generation. And from what I see here today, you guys are all ready to go. Don't run for county commissioner.
And so, David, as you may know, Charter School Week is coming up in May, and on May 15th, our very own Dr. Bazzi will be a keynote speaker in Lansing on behalf of charter schools. And so we wanted to get your opinion. What do you think, what suggestions do you have for Bazzi, who may be listening to this, to speak about charter schools on our behalf and to spread the mission and word about charter schools?
Anytime you're going in to advocate, to a legislator, it's tough because there's so many good things that are going on, so many powerful stories you want to tell, but you have a very tiny window to be able to convey it, right? And so sometimes it can be a challenge to take this huge, powerful narrative and boil it down to something that is so simple and digestible. And so you have to remember a couple of different things. When you're talking to legislators, their day changes every 15 minutes, every 30 minutes, and that's straight through for that full 8-hour day. So I remember days when I was in Lansing, I'd be taking 19 to 20 meetings a day.
Wow.
And by the time the end of the day came, I probably would have had trouble thinking back to what it was that we had talked about in that first meeting. So it's not just that advocacy that you're doing in Lansing. You want to go in, you want to tell your story, have a powerful narrative that you can put in front of people, but you really have to humanize it.
Mhm.
That to me is the key that I think a lot of people miss out on. I was talking with some anesthesiologists the other day, and they were going on and on and on. Well, David, the data says, the facts say, the scholarly articles say, David, believe this, believe that. I said, I understand that. I believe that. But there's 110 representatives across the street who don't care what the articles say. They don't care what the scholarly research says. They care what they think in their head and their heart, or what they saw on Fox News or CNN the night before, right? So when you humanize it, though, it's so much harder to hate. When it's humanized, we're seeing this all over the world right now, right? When you dehumanize somebody, it's done intentionally to make it easier to disagree with them or hate them or push back on what we support it. So no matter what issues you're going to advocate for, maybe it's for charter schools, maybe it's for greater investment in STEM or STEAM or whatever it may be, CTE, when you can humanize it, when you can tell those stories that they're going to go back and tell their family and their friends, that's how you get it to stick. The data, the numbers, all that other stuff, that doesn't sell in Lansing. That doesn't sell in the capital. It's what you can get them to stick in their heart.
Take notes, Dr. Bazzi. That was really good.
No, I don't know. I'm really enjoying this.
Me too.
So much. Maybe your relation to food was kind of questionable.
Why did I say that? Why did I say
Don't
that?
pick it up. Don't remind him.
Like I could have said, like we talked about when I was in Lebanon last year, I had genetic for the first time.
Could have said that.
Yeah.
Those are so good.
Well, the name will be different in different parts
Yeah.
of the country too. Yeah, but yeah, grape leaves, phenomenal. Genetic. Wonder why did I say?
It's okay. We'll go over it.
She had me nervous.
It's called fire for a reason.
Yeah, you got me stumbled. Yeah.
Some of us here are seniors at Star National Academy, and after a year of posting public officials, it really has some of us interested in that specific
Good.
line of work.
Good.
And some of our graduate friends have gone to Washington, D.C. and interned with team members like Rashida Tlaib and many others. So I just wanted to know, what advice would you give to students who want to go into public service, and where would we begin?
Yeah. I think the first piece of advice that I would give, I think sometimes it feels so out of reach for people, right?
Mhm.
They see the big, beautiful Capitol. They see the work that's being done in the community, the speeches that are being given on the floor, and folks feel like, oh, I can't attain that. It's so far away from me. You will be shocked how easy it is to weasel your way into the process, or to establish yourself as a go-to person for somebody, like in my role as a county commissioner, or somebody who's a state rep, a state senator, a member of Congress. Most of it's showing up, and a lot of folks, they're afraid to do the bare minimum. They're nervous about putting themselves out there. If you show up, if you're consistent, if you say where you're going to be, when you say you're going to be there, I'm telling you, that's something that I struggle with now, again, at 37, in wanting to get young people active, engaged. Times are different from when we started. When we started, it was, okay, we know we're going to have to put in some work, some volunteer work, some unpaid work, in order to get our foot in the door, to be able to build a relationship, to eventually ask for a phone number, to be able to text with somebody, and now when I talk to young people, I say, well, here's this great opportunity. You can get your foot in the door. You want to go to pop? Okay, well, what's it going to pay me? That's the first question I get. And I get it, right? Because like conceptually, morally, ethically, from a value standpoint, absolutely, you should be paid for your work. It's interesting for those of us that are a little bit older, because we remember the world where we just knew we had to put in the time and the effort and hope for that opportunity to get your foot in the door. But, the volunteering on the campaign experience, paid or unpaid, you can't beat that in terms of what is going to get your foot in the door. When I hired folks into my office in the House of Representatives, it was the two guys that showed up every day, that drove in, that knocked on the most doors, that did the most work, because these are people that I know and that I trust, and I know they've got a good work ethic. For me, no matter what you're interested in, if you have that interest in politics, I never hire for competency. I hire for your work ethic, because if I know you've got a good work ethic, I can teach you the competency on whatever else it may be. Policy around roads, policies on senior citizens, policies on education, policies on housing. You've got a good work ethic, I can teach you all that stuff. So volunteering in some way, again, paid or unpaid on a campaign is going to be a great way to do it. There's going to be a ton of opportunities this year for folks that live in Dearborn Heights or the surrounding area. Council members that are up this year, commissioners that are up this year. Every member of Congress is up this year. Every member of the House of Representatives is up this year. We've got a U.S. Senate race up this year, a presidential race up this year. That is a great way to get active and get engaged. And for me, always the first thing that I tell people to pursue.
David, this really has been an engaging conversation, and it was so nice to have a community hero at the radio station that actually understands us and knows this community. So on that note, do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to share with the community?
We're done. We're done. Yeah, I'm not a like I said earlier, I'm never the smartest guy in the room, right? And that's certainly the case here too.
No, you definitely are here. No one else in here has their MAB.
No, it's for me. If it's a parting advice, man, this is a good question because I don't sit there and I think, or look back too often. Maybe that's the lesson. You spend too much time looking backwards, you're unable to keep yourself moving forward. I talked about, before we started, losing my reelection. If I just sat there and dwelled on that, it would have kept me and blurred my vision from being able to figure out what's next or move forward. Sometimes the setback is just the setup. It felt like a setback in that moment. It really just set me up for better and greater success and better things in the future. So, as cheesy as it sounds, you're going to have setbacks in life. You're going to have things where you fail, you don't get it, it's not going to work out in the first try. If you let that get you down, man, you've given the power and the control to some other entity, some other person, some other thing over your life, and they don't deserve that, and you don't deserve that either. So allow those setbacks to be learning experiences. Allow them to set you up for bigger and better in the future. And the last thing I would say, as always, if I can be of service to any one of you at any point, I'll hit you with my cell, I'll give you my email, the whole 9 yards. I want to make sure that, again, we're pouring into you as young people and making sure that you have access to the resources and the supports that you need. Because, again, my story is my story. My journey is my journey. Maybe you want to pursue it. Maybe you don't. That's okay. But whatever that journey is, I feel like I have an obligation to give back and to help and to make sure that you can reach that, whatever that may be. So don't be afraid to ask folks for help.
That was extremely motivational, David. Before we end off today, I want to know your side of the story from when Bazzy beat you in basketball, because all we hear is his side. But what's yours? He's a little biased.
So Bazzy never beat me in basketball.
So what happened?
He may have beat not me, because I don't play basketball. Not me. He may have beat Crestwood. But certainly not me. So I was a hockey player for my 4 years at Crestwood. I think they still have
the Red
team.
Wings answer.
Exactly. Bazzy beat us at basketball. Big whoop. We're gonna bring him in here right now. I'll beat him right now. So, but no, listen, the rivalry is good. The rivalry is so healthy. We have it, in the military. We have it around here too. I love Dearborn High. My mom was a lunch lady at Dearborn High for a long time. He might have beat us at basketball, but my mother.
Oh yeah.
So, you're welcome, Bazzy.
Would not have beat you without your mother.
Right. I never thought of it that way.
Thank you so much, Mr. Knezek, for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you and allowing the community and state to get to know you better. This concludes today's live broadcast. Tune in next time for more enlightening discussions on the Nest radio station. Until then, stay curious. We're done.